Hello, hello. Welcome back to the P2P Soap Box. I'm your host and your P2P BFF, Marcie Maxwell. One of the hottest topics in the world of peer-to-peer recently has been new participant acquisition and lead generation. But with that hot topic comes a challenge that keeps coming up for many organizations, and that's the disconnect between the excitement and buzz that marketing generates and the direct recruitment strategies that need to be implemented by local field teams. And that disconnect can result in frustrated participants, overwhelmed staff, and missed opportunities to achieve your participation goals and build lasting relationships with your supporters. But what if marketing and recruitment worked hand in hand instead of in silos? What if the goal wasn't just filling the funnel with prospective participants, but ensuring that every person who enters it has a meaningful experience with your event? What if your in-person recruitment conversations were actually reinforced by the marketing messages that people are seeing instead of just existing alongside them? That is exactly what we're exploring today with Brandi Glover from the Wounded Warrior Project. The Wounded Warrior Project is the nation's leading veteran services organization focused on the total well-being of post-9/11 wounded, ill, or injured veterans. And Brandi serves as a marketing specialist for both their Carry Forward 5K and their streaming programs. But what makes Brandi's perspective so valuable is that she's been on both sides of the equation. She started as a frontline peer-to-peer fundraiser herself before transitioning into marketing. And that experience has completely shaped how she approaches her work and why she understands that trust and alignment between these two teams is so absolutely critical for program success. So today, we're going to dig into the crucial difference between marketing and recruitment and why that distinction actually matters. We'll talk practical strategies for balancing lead gen with sustainable participant experiences and how to set field teams up for success when marketing campaigns exceed their expectations. So let's jump right in to my conversation with the Wounded Warrior Project's Brandi Glover. Brandi, welcome to the P2P Soap Box. So happy to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. Well, Brandi, why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about your kind of personal journey, your professional journey that led you to your role at the Wounded Warrior Project?
Yeah, what a journey. So my first professional role was with a company that actually built academic partnerships to address social impact and business needs related to Fortune 500 companies and government and trade associations. And these took place in the form of peer-to-peer marketing challenges where students across the globe were challenged to create and implement effective integrated marketing campaigns. And in that role, I had the opportunity to support students creating activations around countering violent extremism and hate in their local areas through peer-to-peer campaigns. And seeing these students have such a passion for making real change in their communities and the academic competition only being such a small element compared to the awareness and action they were driving amongst their peers to make change had me knowing that when I left that company, I wanted to do something more than just for my personal gain in my next roles. And I wanted to give back. And so with my entire family, both my parents and my brother having served or are serving in the United States Air Force, Wounded Warrior Project being in Jacksonville was a perfect fit. And to be frank, I didn't stop pursuing it until I got it. And I started actually as a 5K walk run fundraising team coordinator, moved over to live streaming and gaming, and then now am on the marketing side of the house as a marketing specialist, supporting the peer-to-peer fundraising teams and the Carry Forward 5K event and live streaming and gaming initiative.
Well, I love hearing that background. I'm always so interested in what brings people to this work. I think so many of us on the peer-to-peer side of the house have longed for someone on the marketing side to have a peer-to-peer background. So since you started kind of as a peer-to-peer fundraiser, how has that background shaped the way you approach marketing for those campaigns and support for the teams that are on the ground doing your old job?
It has definitely shaped it in more ways than I could put into words and more ways than I could ever show or express. But one of the key elements that I think that it has helped with is my ability to share the knowledge of what's important and the focus areas of our fundraising team to my marketing teammates to help us be a stronger support team and truly align in new and unique ways because of that insight. And then from the marketing perspective, I know what it takes on the resource development side to build those relationships through one-on-one stewardship and engagement and all of the work the fundraising team conducts. I'm able to bring a unique perspective, having done that for multiple years, to understand the community interests and help us as a marketing team better know what the audience is looking for, what's engaging them, what are their interests, and of course, the nuances to the different ways that these initiatives, whether it's the 5K or live streaming and gaming, talk and absorb information and are motivated to act. And so these two things together have helped create a unique relationship between our teams and influence how, from a marketing side, we're storytelling.
So you have street cred, is what you're saying, on both sides of the house.
I definitely do. I like to think I do.
I know. I remember when I moved from a field job to a national job. And I think after I'd been in the national job for a while, you'd see new people come in and they wouldn't know that I'd ever been in the field. And then when I shared that, it's like I had an immediate street cred where people are like, oh, she's actually been in our shoes. She's not just sitting in this role at a national office or in a marketing team sitting there going, let me tell you what you should do. Like that I actually understood. And so I definitely think it sounds like you know the grind. You know the grind on both sides of the house, which I think is really great. So what was that transition like from fundraising to marketing? And let's talk a little bit about, how you built trust between those two teams. Again, I'm sure that street cred helps a little bit, but what did that look like at Wounded Warrior Project?
Yeah, I think trust is such a tough question. Everybody, of course, wants trust on all elements, and we all learn about it in leadership training or, different activations to establish this. And for me, obviously, I do have the benefit of having some credibility on the other side of the house. But a large part of my approach to building trust comes down to giving credit and appreciation to the efforts that the field teams input to create that one-on-one engagement and stewardship of fundraisers. I think it helps them feel seen, and it highlights how our marketing efforts and their stewardship efforts are symbiotic and actually elevate one another's actions. Because I know the level of investment that it takes to build those quality relationships and I'm able to give credit to it, the other element that I'm able to do is highlight key metrics and insights that I know are high value for the fundraising teammates from my perspective to position the tactic and strategic recommendations of marketing to help the fundraising team understand how it actually is fitting into their role and what they're doing and actually why we're doing it. And once again, how it's mutually beneficial for us both. And that has been a skill that I've had to give and take on to develop and not feel like I'm investing too much of my peer-to-peer experience and really steering them in that direction, but also not further creating any barriers by enforcing too much marketing verbiage and knowledge to where you're left with the team questioning why.
Well, and I think it's so important because it's acknowledging the expertise on both sides of the house, right? I think back to a really great marketing partnership that I had, or a marketing partnership that really changed, where I would get really frustrated in a job overseeing a national walk program where it felt like the email team didn't understand the audience, didn't understand what these emails needed to say, didn't understand what the asks needed to be. And they brought in a new staff person who said, I don't know peer-to-peer, but I do know email. So this is how we're going to work together. I want these messages to say what you want them to say, but I'm going to tell you how we improve the open rate with, a really great subject line, how we need to, drop in buttons or drop in links in order to get people clicking through. So she's like, I'm here to up our email game, but I'm not here to tell you what it needs to say. And it was such a great partnership. Again, I mean, this was over 10 years ago, and I still reflect on this great relationship that I have with this colleague, because I could respect the expertise she was bringing to the table. She could respect what I was bringing to the table, and we could create something better. So do you have some examples of kind of what this alignment looks like? Like, what does that look like in practice for your team?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with when it comes to like email open rates, that versus the content of the message. Marketing can feel very prescriptive because we have these very direct A/B testing, tactics, and that kind of can contradict the fluidity that the fundraising team is able to implement in their one-on-one relationship building approach. And so tactically, one of the things that I have been able to do to help build that alignment is one of the biggest barriers sometimes is timing or budget. And when marketing receives a request that comes up against those two things, I, having invested in learning in peer-to-peer side, but also the experience, me and my team are able to now step back and help the teams brainstorm other alternatives, but also think outside of the box by taking off our marketing hats at times to help drive adjacent results, but not have to send it through email and text. And at the end of the day, we're the same team, like with the same goals. And when I think about the difference between peer-to-peer and marketing and trying to, again, create that alignment, it's hard when priorities are similar, but the nuances are different between each other, and being able to communicate that create the barriers. But I do believe you can overcome them through communication with early planning, sharing the why behind efforts from both sides of the house, as well as letting go of control. At the end of the day, marketing...
What? Letting go of control? Peer-to-peer fundraisers love that.
I hate to say it, but marketing, we have brand guidelines and things that sometimes we also have to cover your ears, marketing professionals, but, sometimes let go of just a tad bit, but still stay true. And I think at the end of the day, marketing knows the brand, but like peer-to-peer, like field and fundraising teammates know the relationships, and they can inspire one another to create those mutually strong activations. And they're symbiotic, but we have to openly communicate and have what at the very beginning are really hard conversations. I like to see it as marketing is the broad paintbrush. I'm going to sweep to paint the base colors. We're going to reach the broader audience. We're going to tell you how we're bringing them in. And then the fundraising team is the key to the details. They're the fine tip brush. And it's only possible to create that full picture through effective collaboration, those early plannings, and letting go of control.
I love that.
Accidents, some say.
Yeah. Well, and I think the early planning is what is key. And I know that I can think of marketing and development partnerships that I've been a part of in the past, where the marketing team has said, we feel like order takers instead of strategic partners. How about instead come to us and say, okay, our goal is to grow by X% or X number of new participants. Now let's come up with that strategy together. And what is the marketing strategy that's going to help us do that? And what is the field strategy that's going to help us do that? And making them both work together is so critically important. But if you just come to the marketing team and say, okay, here's our plan, go implement it. Or if the marketing team comes in and says, okay, here's our communication plan. Have fun. I hope you hit your goal. You're also setting yourself up for a lot of finger pointing if things don't go well. And so I think that early planning is so critical, and I hope is not being overlooked at a lot of places.
It removes a lot of pressure. And you also get to do the fun part of work where you're building those relationships because you're not stressed about this plan that was like, I washed my hands of it and it's now on your plate. It's where the trenches are, where you build those relationships. So
yep. Exactly. Well, no, I can even, again, now you've got my mind turning on all these memories of, I can remember, working on a walk program where we had some really specific markets we were keying in on. And we did market specific planning calls with the marketing team where that local market would say, here's our local stories. Here's our connections on the local level with whether it's media partners or, just people that are engaged that we could bring some stories to the table. And then the marketing team was like, okay, now let us help you create this whole strategy. You don't have to do it on your own. You don't have to come up with this big plan, but bring us that information.
Give us what you got. Yeah. And let us help you.
Exactly. So, I often think as well, one of kind of the early things that I would always talk about when it comes to marketing and recruitment, I can remember being in a committee meeting early on in my field fundraising days and asking somebody how recruitment was going. And they're like, well, we put up some flyers. And I was like, this is way back in the day. This was before social media marketing. So it was doing some flyers. And I was like, great. Yeah. Marketing and recruitment are not the same thing. Like putting up flyers is marketing. It's building awareness. That is not what is going to sign people up. And so what role do you feel like your marketing team plays in kind of setting up the field staff up for success when it comes to actually recruiting people to sign up for the event?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with marketing versus recruitment and what it takes to get past awareness. And one of the small pieces that I think it's small, it's a small move, but it can net really big wins would be lead generation. Specifically, I think the easiest place to start, while there's a lot of different types of lead gen, whether you're offering free resources in exchange for someone's first name and email contact information, or you're simply sharing with them the goal of your organization or your campaign, and they are expressing interest. I think there's multiple ways, but social media lead gen ads are one of the easier entries to be to the market. And it involves collecting key information of interested parties. And that can kind of sounds like a marketing only tactic when you say it like that. I'm getting information. And it's truly hard for peer-to-peer and fundraising teams, I've noticed, to prioritize that in budget or allow a marketing team to go ahead and activate that. But it can be beneficial for both sides of the house. And I think it's one of the key activations that can help bridge that gap between marketing and peer-to-peer. And it helps marketing build a lead list to promote the event. But now we're able to provide that list, a targeted list of some of your warmer leads who have expressed interest, to help the peer-to-peer team feel like they now are being supported and lifted up with actionable content and details to move forward versus just stewardship and engagement of current fundraisers.
Yeah. It's a gift at the end of the day. I mean, to be able to say it's, we've narrowed the pool, right? Now you're going to go after getting these people to sign up. They already know what it's about. I think I can think of the same things with, not on the marketing side, but when you go out and you get a national corporate team for a walk campaign, and then you're able to say, these people have said yes. All you have to do is go show up and actually get them to sign up. We are gifting this to you to make your job easier. Now, but we can't necessarily always get them to convert, right? I think marketing can sometimes only take it so far. Sometimes marketing takes it all the way through, but sometimes it can only take it so far before that actual human intervention or conversation to get someone to say, okay, now I understand what it means to be a streamer for Wounded Warrior Project. Now I understand what it means to be a team captain for the Carry Forward 5K, and I'm going to go sign up. Sometimes it often takes that human interaction.
And there's only so much time in a day. And I think we can all relate to that. And time is the one resource we can't get back. And so I think if I had to say one thing to lead gen as a concept or allowing that to be mutually beneficial is like, it's not competing. Like we're not competing with one another, but rather we're complementing one another in this specific instance because the field team now gets the opportunity to focus on the fun part, like the activating part, and they don't have to necessarily go do social listening. It's a huge benefit and they should, but there's only so much time. So like save that for a Friday when everybody's active on social and use what you have at your fingertips thanks to the broad paintbrush of marketing.
Yeah. I mean, I can think of times where I've said, I can do all your social advertising and do all of your emails from a single point at a national office. But what I can't do is take a team captain to coffee. I can't go present at a corporate team kickoff meeting. Like that has to happen locally. And so again, it's freeing them up. It's using the expertise of the marketing team, but freeing up the field staff to focus on that really high value activity instead of sometimes being stuck in the weeds of whether they're not an expert.
We can't put the face to the name or the face in this instance to the organization, but the field team can. And that's when you're going to get that conversion. And when they know your name and they are able to be aware because of marketing and put your face to the organization and attribute gratitude and support as a result of your efforts, I think it brings me back to my peer-to-peer side of like the reward there. And I'm missing.
Now, so we also talk about, we said, marketing and recruitment aren't the same thing. And I often also think about, the marketing funnel. I think of marketing as kind of the awareness and consideration. And then again, that field staff as kind of the conversion, right? But sometimes your marketing efforts can almost be too successful and it almost creates a bottleneck, right? Where with the field staff. So how do you balance kind of generating those leads, generating that excitement with then making sure the field teams are set up to respond and to deliver a good, customer support experience, personal experience in the local market?
I think that is it's such a great question because it's different for each initiative that at least I'm supporting from a marketing standpoint or my teammates are supporting at Wounded Warrior Project, because going into a recruitment or lead gen campaign, it really comes down to what is the goal and what does the field team expect out of running that lead gen. And so that can look different for a 5K or a live streaming program where it really is about awareness and bringing them into the fold, but the team not being quite ready to engage one-on-one yet. Or maybe they're in the middle of logistics planning compared to, say, golf, hosting a golf tournament and the nuanced details that go into the lift to do that as a fundraiser. That fundraising team most likely wants that one-on-one connection to build that high quality relationship at the beginning. And they don't want marketing engagement between sign up and their touch point. And so I think knowing those goals going into it can help, because if you don't, you might have different expectations. And I know in our instance, one that has been too successful, which is like a great problem to have.
But again, it's like turning on I had an old boss that used to say, you turn on the marketing faucet, but if the bowl isn't big enough to catch it, it's a good problem to have, but it's a problem.
Yep. And it's one of those things, like one instance where we did have that quote unquote problem, that challenge was with our golf fundraising initiative. Early on, we wanted to gather leads of those who might be interested in hosting a golf event fundraiser at their local course. And it involved a large checklist and nuanced details that the fundraising teammate really wanted to be able to speak to before any broad marketing efforts went. And we turned that on, and I could be exaggerating, but I promise you it was within one day we already had overloaded that staff member with the quantity of interested parties, which is fantastic for him to know that many are interested. And this is where the communication and the willingness to kind of have those hard, nerve-wracking conversations, he had to tell us, hey, I know we just turned that on, which from a marketing standpoint means that ad didn't get to its fullest potential, but I'm at max. I'm actually over capacity for reaching out to these individuals, and I don't want them to feel unseen and unheard. So can you turn it off? And we did. And that is a great example of where, had he not said anything, the goal for that lead gen campaign would have fallen flat, and those fundraisers would not have been getting the stewardship and engagement that was intended.
Or it would have looked like a success on the marketing side, but not a success on the fundraising side. And then again, I think even those small conversations, they do build the trust. So that the next time when they say, okay, flip side, that lead gen is not working, we're not getting what we need about it, you are able to respond and have a conversation, and they can feel comfortable coming to you to say, what else can we do? And I just think that's a really important part of the process, and having that partnership is so key.
Yeah. And you don't want to accidentally create, if you don't say it, no one knows. I do believe that. And so without that communication, there's pressure on one side and celebration on the other. And then on the flip side, if a lead gen or an advertisement is performing really high on the marketing side, and there's no strategy rolled out to the fundraising side, it can create derision as well, where once again, that celebration and pressure can be opposite.
Well, or you're spending money on an ad that can't turn into anything because nobody was there to respond to it. So, well, Brandi, I think you have such a unique perspective that I just think I'm sure your field team really values. I'm sure the rest of your marketing team values what you bring to the table. So if there are people that are sitting here wondering more about how they can get involved with what you do at the Wounded Warrior Project, how can people get involved? Where can we send people?
Absolutely. Great conversation today. Thank you very much as well. And I would say if there are listeners who are veterans or have a family or friend who have served and are interested in learning more about Wounded Warrior Project's programs and services or getting connected, they can visit www.woundedwarriorproject.org. And then, of course, if listeners are looking for an opportunity to get involved in their local areas, they can sign up for a Carry Forward 5K, where we have in-person events in San Diego, Nashville, San Antonio, and Jacksonville at the WWP headquarters. Or you can sign up virtually for a virtual Carry Forward and run in your local area anytime to help raise awareness and critical funds that fuel programs to support warriors and their families. And that's at www.carryforward.org.
I like WWP. It's great. I would probably say that all the time. I love it. Well, Brandi, thank you so much for joining us on the P2P Soap Box today.
Thank you so much, Marcie, for having me. It was a great conversation, and I'm excited to learn more.
Awesome. See y'all next episode.
The P2P Soap Box is produced in partnership with True Story FM. Engineering by Pete Wright. Music this week is by Oliver Michael. If your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, we hope you'll consider doing just that for our show. But the best thing that you can do to support the P2P Soap Box is simply to share the show with a friend or colleague. Thank you for listening.